Chesterfield will go on the hunt for a fourth consecutive victory when they host Harrogate Town at the SMH Group Stadium on Saturdays. We enter the back straight of the season, 10 games to go for the Sparrites now. Every win could be crucial and will be crucial as they look to make that unlikely late dash for the playoff places. Thank you very much for anybody who supported both the pre-match and post-match content geared towards the win at Notts County last weekend. Looking to get similar out for the remainder of the games in this run-in, and of course any support on that, including this video today, would be massively appreciated. If you want to catch me elsewhere, Twitter, TikTok, Medium, all of that good stuff, the links for all of those will be down in the description. But with that brief bit of admin out of the way, let's dive straight into the main bulk of the video, which is of course a look ahead to this game on Saturday. And we'll start with a look ahead to Chesterfield's potential starting 11, and there's good news and bad news when it comes to kind of player availability and injury updates where Chesterfield are concerned. We'll start with the bad news, get that out of the way nice and early, and unfortunately it is bad news regarding Raheem Shackelford. He will not be available for Saturday's game, and if what Paul Cook and Danny Webber said kind of in the build-up to this one turns out to be accurate, it seems unlikely that we'll see him again for the remainder of the season. Of course, went off at half-time against Salford City with a calf issue. Managed to make the starting 11 against Notts County, but then by all accounts managed to aggravate that same calf issue, and it's now kind of progressed into a bit more of a serious one, and could well have put an end to his season, which is a real shame because he missed much of the first half of the campaign due to injury issues. Managed to get a chance in the squad, kind of ironically, due to kind of injury issues revolving around other players but has actually done, I think, pretty well over that 2 or 3 month period. Maybe a couple of kind of exceptions in terms of poor games where he might struggle a little bit aside. I think on the whole, he was very reliable, very solid, and did a very commendable job at a time when Chesterfield needed players to step up when they were thin on the ground. So a massive shame for Chesterfield to lose a dependable option, and a massive shame, of course, for the player to have suffered what looks to be another relatively long-term injury issue. In terms of his replacement, you would imagine that's going to be pretty straightforward, in that it will be Janoy Danassian. Came on, of course, for Shackelford in both those games at Salford and at Notts County, and did a pretty steady job as well. So a very good option to be able to call upon, and you would imagine that will be that right back spot will be his for the foreseeable future. So without further ado, let's get on to the good news, and it is very good news from a Chesterfield perspective, and it is the fact that Will Grigg is finally available again for selection. Another one who's been out for a while, got injured just before Christmas, I believe, and has not been seen since, but by all accounts will be available and should be coming into the squad for this game on Saturday. And it's such a big boost for Chesterfield, of course, was such a massive part of their National League winning campaign last season. Such an experienced player to have as an option to lead that line, so to have him back in contention is huge for what they want to do for the remainder of the season. Now, in what capacity he will come back in kind of remains to be seen. I suppose, will he come straight back into the starting 11, or will he come onto the bench and then slowly have his minutes built up and kind of eased in that way? Of course, this is just my opinion, as is anything on this channel, but I do think the second is maybe a little bit more likely, simply because of the form that Ben Pepler has been in. 3 goals in 3 games, becoming an increasingly important presence on that front line for Chesterfield. So with a player in such good form, that there's no kind of worrying hole in the team that Will Grigg needs to be rushed back in to fill. I think you can leave Pepple in there and then maybe kind of on the 60-65 minute mark start kind of bringing Grigg on, slowly building him up, so you get to a point where down those last half a dozen games or so where you might need him, and particularly with some Tuesday night games coming up, Grigg will be available, but no immediate concern or kind of need to rush him straight back into the starting 11. But if it is deemed that he is able to start, he's of course got so much experience, so much quality, that if you do see him in the starting 11, it will be a massive surprise. But for now, we'll pitch him to come onto the bench and Pepple to retain his place, which leaves kind of one final kind of selection concern, if you like, and that is surrounding Armando Dobra. Now, Dobra is on 9 yellow cards for the season in the league, and the 37th game of the league season, which for Chesterfield is tomorrow's, marks the last point for which 10 yellow cards yields a 2-game suspension. So do Chesterfield kind of drop into the bench or rest him, or however you want to term it, for this game on Saturday, in the hope of kind of getting him through that without a yellow card, so then he is pretty, barring picking up a ridiculous number of yellow cards down those back 9 games of the season, he'll be available and not have to worry about that for the rest of the campaign? Or do you push him through and just say kind of what will be? To be honest, I understand both schools of thought on this one, and it's because they largely come from the same place, and it's how important Armando Dobra is to Chesterfield. Has been a real key figure of the side for 2 or 3 years now, and particularly in the past few months has really started to adapt to league football and really become a real massive part of what Chesterfield have done and are looking to do for the rest of the season. So are you of the view of, he's that important that maybe do you play the odds a little bit and say, yeah, well, you might have to miss him for 1 game, but then you've definitely got him for the next 2 and beyond? Or do you say, look, he's so important that if he's fit and available, he plays and we'll deal with whatever comes up down the road? Personally, I would lean towards playing him simply because Chesterfield has started to get kind of some cohesion, started to put a run together. Their attacking kind of unit has started to look more fluid, and taking not only a consistent part of that, but a big kind of driving part of that unit out of the team and withdrawing it, maybe tinkering with the setup a little bit, maybe disrupting that at a time when you've just started to get something going. So I would maybe kind of take the risk on that one, but it is a risk, of course, and if he gets a yellow card, I think people will say it's obvious what they should have done, but by virtue, if Chesterfield are 2-0 down after an hour and Dobra hasn't played, people will be saying the opposite. So it's one of those where it is a bit of a down if you do, down if you don't situation if it goes the wrong way, but I think I'd lean towards playing him. So with that in mind, we will kind of pitch this as Chesterfield's potential starting 11 for this game with just the 1 change, with Janoy Danassian coming in for Raheem Shackelford, and that one is pretty much a banker, you would imagine, at this stage. So with that starting 11 in place, I suppose we can move on to the discussion of how the game might go, and here's where there's a little bit of confession time for me personally, and Harrogate are a little bit of a blind spot for me when it comes to like opposition analysis and things like that. Simply just haven't managed to get round to catching them much when they played this season, and actually the reverse fixture, which of course Harrogate won 2-1 when Chesterfield played them away from home. It's one of the few games from Chesterfield that I haven't managed to catch in one way or another, be it at the game or on TV or kind of after the fact through kind of like full match replays and things like that. It's one of the few games that I haven't been able to take a kind of more detailed look back over. So not as familiar with Harrogate as some other teams, but I think if you just kind of look around and do some kind of base level analysis, one thing that you can say with a decent amount of certainty is this is probably going to be quite a different game to the one against Notts County last time out. Of course, it's at home for Chesterfield rather than away, which in itself often tends to bring a different kind of pressure. Notts County up towards the top end of the table, Harrogate more towards the lower end. And when you look at it in terms of kind of the possession, kind of both of those respective opponents tend to like Notts County right at the top of the possession table in League 2, whereas Harrogate are down the other end, I think 3rd from bottom. From memory, when I had a brief look when I was doing the research for this video. So in terms of course kind of the percentage of possession that they tend to average per game. So I think Chesterfield can expect a very different kind of task in terms of how they're going to want to go about things to get 3 points on Saturday. But actually, I think a lot of the keys for Chesterfield remain the same regardless, particularly when you're talking about the role of Danassian and Gordon. Of course, if these attacking midfield 3 stays in place, it's once again going to be these three players likely looking to play that little bit more in field. And what you don't want, if it is going to be a kind of low block and counter sort of tactic for Harrogate, is for them to simply just be able to kind of condense themselves, close off that middle of the pitch, and then Chesterfield have nothing to switch the ball wide and try and kind of get them shuffling and open up some space. So You're definitely going to want to see those overlapping runs from Donacien and Gordon to make the pitch as wide as possible, kind of disrupt or at least kind of stretch out Harrogate's defensive shape, and then look to kind of open up those little pockets of space for Armando Dobra and Liam Mandeville and Ollie Banks and etc, etc. All that supporting cast, how devastating they can be when they get a bit of time and space on the ball. So you want to open up the pitch, and you're going to need that overlapping support, most likely, from the likes of Donacien and Gordon to do that. But of course there is a balancing act, as always. Kind of spoke about it against Notts County. It's almost even more relevant here. There's a balancing act to be struck with this, because Chesterfield might get into a position where Harrogate are in that low block, they're frustrating them, and they start to get maybe a little bit desperate, start pushing a little bit too much. And what you don't want to do is give Harrogate the opportunity to hit on the break. Now, from a brief look through kind of the extended highlights packages of Harrogate's last games over the kind of past month or so, they definitely do look, when they win the ball back, look to play it forward early, look to turn their opposition, which is not an inherent worry, I wouldn't say, for Chesterfield, because they have got Ash Palmer and Jamie Grimes, who, to be honest, probably suit a more direct kind of game, because their bread and butter is winning those aerial duels, getting the ball down, and then allowing kind of the midfielders or fullbacks or whoever to come, pick the ball up and recycle it and go again. So no huge worry about it dealing with the ball coming over in the air. I think the issue arises is if these kind of wide spaces are left vacant and Harrogate are then able to kind of smash the ball down the line, feed it into the channels, drag these players out, and they end up in kind of 1v1 foot races, because that is where, with the greatest respect, and as I say, huge kind of admirer of Palmer and Grimes when it comes to their ability to win those aerial duels. But possibly the weaker area for the pair is kind of in terms of the ground duels and kind of those 1v1 foot races, as we just said. So I think that's the main area where Harrogate could hurt Chesterfield if they get kind of drawn onto them, kind of rope-a-dope style, kind of sitting back in that low block, inviting Chesterfield to throw bodies forward and then looking to throw it back the other way quickly and catch them out. So Chesterfield are going to have to manage that. It might be a case that when they're attacking, maybe one of these fullbacks goes, the other stays forward, and then when they're attacking kind of the other side of the pitch, vice versa. And actually, I don't think that's necessarily too much of a concern, because when we're talking about looking to overload the kind of back line, as we did against Notts County, looking to get those numerical overloads, it looks like Harrogate typically operate with a back four. So if you're looking to kind of force that overload, it's more of a 5v4 situation rather than a 6v5 as it would be against a team like Notts County. So you can probably kind of account for, still be able to get the overload that you want, whilst also kind of having one of those extra players hang back and allowing you to have more coverage of these kind of wider areas, channel areas, whatever you look to turn, which you would imagine Harrogate will look to target in this game. So we've spoken about kind of what Chesterfield, the keys for Chesterfield from an attacking point of view, the keys for Chesterfield from a defensive point of view, and once again, a lot of it, and I know we spoke about it in both of the Notts County videos, really, the role of Gordon and Donacien, but it's going to continue to be a big role for them to play in the team as long as this attacking, kind of narrow attacking three remains in place. And why wouldn't it when they're all playing so well at the moment? It's going to be their role to not only provide some width in attack, but then also balance that and make sure that they're not leaving that defensive unit undermanned in defence. So it's going to be a big role for them again, but they certainly put in a good showing against Notts County. If they can replicate that here, that will be kind of a huge boost to Chesterfield's chances of getting a positive result in this game. So that kind of leads nicely on to some closing thoughts and how is this game going to go. And it's really difficult to say, really. You would imagine that most people would mark Chesterfield down as favourites. They're higher in the league, they're at home. But a lot of people would have also said that when they played Accrington Stanley, for example, and they were beaten by 3-0. So nothing a given. Certainly not. But Chesterfield are starting to put some good form together. They are starting to, for the first time in a while, really have a consistent group of players to pick from. And if those players can produce the kind of stuff they did at their best in their better spells of those games against Salford and Notts County and against Newport County as well, that should stand them in good stead here. But I am going to, as always, kind of stop myself short of offering an official prediction, because this season has just been so up and down for Chesterfield, so unpredictable that there's quite a lot of room to make yourself look very, very silly, and the internet is an unforgiving place. So I'm gonna stop myself short of offering an official prediction, but there's plenty of reason for encouragement, I think, for Chesterfield going into this one. But of course, they'll have to be at their best and have to be wary to the threat that Harrogate will look to pose, particularly as we say, particularly on the break. But that is it for this video. Thank you very, very much for watching. If you have made it this far, it is always hugely, hugely appreciated. As I say, any support by the way of likes, subscriptions, shares, whatever it might be, is always hugely, hugely appreciated. And hopefully, as we'll say, see you back here at some point early next week to have a look back on this game and see how Chesterfield fared, and yeah, to see how they go. Really, we will have to wait and see. But yes, thank you very, very much for tuning in to this video, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.